So it doesn't really matter whether you shoot with your iPhone or a professional camera. You definitely want to avoid these 5 common mistakes in portraits to improve your photography and improve your portraiture today. So mistake number 1 is so freaking common, and I have made this mistake so many times, and I sometimes continue to make this mistake, and it's cutting off limbs or cutting off limbs at the wrong place. So what you don't want to be doing is cutting off people at the wrist, at the elbow, or at the foot. So these are awkward places to cut somebody off, and it will look like the person doesn't have the limb, or it will just look a little bit strange. So when you are composing your portrait, you want to make sure that all the limbs are in the picture, or that if you are doing a portrait, just to here you're cutting off like right at the shoulder, or you are doing an American shot. An American shot is to cut somebody off just kind of at the waist or below the waist, which is like a classical composition feature in portraiture that you can definitely do, and it will look good. So mistake number 2 is super common, and sometimes it's really hard to get this right because you're busy and in the midst of shooting. But this is not paying enough attention to what is going on in the background. So is a tree or a bush growing out of your subject's head? Is the horizon or some line, some architecture cutting just across your subject's neck? Or is an object or another person just kind of peeking out behind of your subject? All of these things you definitely want to look out for and avoid to create a nice portrait, because these things are not only going to be unflattering for the portrait you're trying to create and kind of destroy your composition, it's also just going to look very busy to the eye and distract from what you're actually trying to highlight, which is the person that you are portraying. So a good trick is, before you take the portrait, is really remind yourself to look at the background and also to look at all 4 corners of your image, because sometimes the distracting thing is not directly behind your subject, but it's kind of like peeking into the frame. It's kind of coming in at the corner of your frame. And yeah, sometimes you can cut it out in post. You can just change your composition by cutting it off in editing. But really what you're aiming for is to get it right in camera, so you are the most flexible. And you can make sure of this by checking behind your subject and checking in all 4 corners when you're looking through that viewfinder. All right, mistake number 3 is what I'm gonna call panda eyes. So this means that your subject's eyes are in the shadow and not illuminated. So you have kind of dark shadows above or under your person's eyes, and there is no reflection or like highlight in the eye. So the way you can fix this is by just looking for the right lighting. So if you're shooting somebody indoors, you want to position them kind of opposite a window or maybe opposite a white wall. And you can use the same trick when you are outside. So you definitely want to make sure that light that you are using is illuminating the eyes of the person, or you are using something like a reflector that you carry with you to bounce the light into their eyes, or you want to use like some bounce that you can just find at the place, so you can position them again like opposite a white object, like a white wall, a white truck, a white car, just anything white and bright you can find. It can also be a reflective surface, so something that is like metal or silver. This will also reflect the light nicely and help you highlight the eyes nicely. So before we jump into point 4, if you are getting value from this video so far, I ask you to gently tap the like button, because it will let me know that these kind of videos are helpful for you and I can create more. So the 4th mistake you are definitely trying to avoid is a stiff pose or a stiff body posture of your subject. So you don't want your subject standing like stiff and straight like a tree, so they kind of look like a robot and a little bit awkward. You definitely, as a photographer, want to help them relax into a good pose that is going to be flattering for the image and for the silhouette, and improve your composition in portraiture overall. So a really good way to do this that I learned from my photography teacher is to let your subject lean against something. So it could be a wall, a tree, a chair, whatever you can find, let them lean against it and it will immediately relax their body posture. Another trick you can do is to let them stand and put their weight on one leg and have the other leg as their playful leg. So this will immediately create a bend in their silhouette and just overall make them look more relaxed and natural. And actually, if you are shooting with an experienced model, you will notice that they will do this by themselves. So it's gonna be in their second nature to put their body in different kind of bends and silhouettes to make it more relaxed. However, if you are shooting with less experienced subjects, so say you're shooting a family portrait or your friends or just somebody who hasn't been in front of a camera, who isn't being photographed super regularly in their life, they will usually stiffen up in front of your camera and stand like this, and it will make them look really tense and awkward. So you as a photographer, it's your job to help them relax and give them some direction so they know what to do with their body. Usually you will notice people say, I don't know what to do with my arms. And it's your job as a photographer to kind of help them with this. All right, mistake number 5 is shooting your subject from an awkward angle. So what do I mean by this? This is when you are shooting from bottom up to your subject or from the top down to your subject. And this happens if there is a big height difference between you and your subjects. So say for me, I'm very short, and whenever I shoot somebody really tall, I'm running the risk that this will happen. Or say if you're really tall and you're shooting a tiny person like me, you're running the risk that this will happen. So what you want to look out for is that you position the camera just on the same level as the eyes of your subject, and that will give you a straight up shot. And don't get me wrong, what I'm not saying is that you shouldn't experiment with angles or that shooting from a more extreme angle will always look wrong or bad. That's not the case, but you definitely want to be aware of the effect that this will have on your portrait. So say if you are shooting from the bottom up, this will give your subject a more grandiose look. It can make them look tall, but it can also make them look arrogant and like they're looking down upon the viewer. It can also, in some people, just be really unflattering to the shape of their face, their jaw, or create a disproportion between their body and their head. So if you're kneeling down and you're shooting up to them, it can make their body look really big and their head really small. And in the reverse, if you are shooting from the top down, then it can make your subject look vulnerable, small, sweet, cute, innocent. But it can also create the illusion that the viewer is looking down upon them and making them, not really powerful and strong. Especially women and girls sometimes like to do this, create these innocent, big Bambi eyes looking up to somebody. You know what I mean? So of course you can use this to create this effect if that's your intention, but a lot of the times it's not our intention and we do this and it just looks a little off. What it can also do if you're shooting from the top down, it can collapse somebody's neck and make them look like they have a really short neck or they don't have a neck at all. So just be aware of this. So if you found this video really helpful and you want to learn more about photography, I can recommend you this video next on my channel, and I'll see you there. Bye bye.